Today, we're talking about the AI skill that matters more than writing code. A lot of teams are burning time and money on AI projects that probably should never have been built to begin with. Writing code is easier than ever, but many companies are still building AI systems that fail to deliver business value. So, if code is so easy to write now with AI copilots, why are so many teams getting this wrong? It's because there's a deeper AI skill that's more important than writing code. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what that skill is and why it's so critical. Let's get to it. So, one of the really big reasons that so many companies are burning money on AI projects is that they're often building the wrong thing. So, what actually fixes this? What skill helps you fix it? The thing that you need is knowing what to build, what not to build, and why. The way that I would describe that in maybe a single word is judgment. The thing that most companies need, and the thing that most AI engineers and AI leaders need, is good judgment. But what does that actually mean in practice? Let's kind of walk through this. In practice, having good judgment with respect to AI and AI projects means a couple of different things. Number one, most projects should not start with code. They should start with good diagnostics. That is, they should start with trying to figure out what the business problem is. What problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to decrease the number of defects, decrease the number of maybe false alerts in one of your technology systems? Are you trying to increase revenue, increase the number of customers? It almost always starts with diagnosing the problem. And sometimes this is a little bit more complicated than it sounds. You say, hey, we just need more money. Well, does that mean that you need more customers or do you need a higher revenue per customer? Different problem. Now, the thing is that once you diagnose that high level business problem that you're trying to solve, then you can start diving into more detailed aspects of the problem. So, what metrics do you need to drive? What are our operational priorities? What exactly does success look like? Once you start asking these questions and then getting answers to some of these questions, you can start to actually look at the problem a little bit more clearly. And once you see the problem more clearly, then you can start mapping out the workflow, figuring out what types of tools and techniques you might need to use. And you can ask more questions still. Things like, where do we need a large language model versus maybe a classic machine learning classifier? Can we maybe use some deterministic code for parts of our system? Maybe you need an agent, but maybe you don't need an agent. And it's only by trying to figure out and diagnose the actual problem, figuring out your key metrics, figuring out your business priorities, then mapping out the workflow, then you can start figuring out what to build. Notice that all of these things that I'm talking about with respect to diagnostics and good AI judgment, they're not strictly technical. A lot of it has to do with understanding business mechanics, and then understanding how technology can solve various types of business problems. If you know how to do this, if you have good AI judgment, you're good at diagnosing business problems and connecting the right tools and techniques to those problems in such a way that you can solve them, you can often generate enormous business value inside of a company. Having said that, if you do not have good AI judgment, things can often go very wrong. By the way, if you want to know if your company is really ready to use AI, you're going to want to take our AI readiness assessment. It's about 15 questions. It'll take you maybe 3 minutes, and it's going to grade you on 3 core areas that will help you evaluate your own AI readiness. So find the link in the description below, click on the link, and take our AI readiness assessment right now. So let me give you a quick example of this. I talked to a technology startup a couple of months ago, and they wanted to add some new features to their SaaS product. Now, this product had a lot of text-based inputs as well as a lot of text-based outputs. And that being the case, they naturally gravitated towards large language models. In fact, one of the people in the company said, we need to use an LLM for everything to solve these problems and add these new features to our product. So what they built, they essentially jumped into using AI, using large language models, and they built a system that had a very long system prompt. And that system prompt was trying to do all sorts of things like logic, reasoning, step-by-step processing. They were doing a lot of text processing and parsing, Things like stripping out white space, stripping out characters, or transforming various types of characters on the incoming text. This is really kind of routine text processing. I'll comment more on that in just a second. But they were really trying to do a lot with a large language model. And in order to do this, they had a very long system prompt. Now, unfortunately, a very long system prompt can often lead to much higher inference costs due to the nature of how LLM inference works. They didn't understand that. So one of the major issues was just very high cost. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have really good AI judgment internally. And the system was running at relatively high cost. It also wasn't really working very well. The things that they needed the system to do, it wasn't really doing. It was inaccurate. So when they got to me, they asked, how do we fix this? And I said, you should not be using AI for all of this. What they actually needed was something more like a hybrid system that used LLMs for some parts, certainly traditional text parsing, just a script that would parse the incoming text, strip out characters, do a little bit of text processing, something more like a simple Python or a Perl script. Then they needed some deterministic workflow logic that would send incoming text to the right parts of the system or the right parts of the process. Then they needed another LLM for certain parts of text generation and collecting some intermediate outputs for consolidation and final processing and output. So what they needed was something that was more like a hybrid system. And ultimately, in order to get there, what they really needed was a set of people internally that had the judgment to be able to design such a system. If they had built it this way, it would have been much cheaper to run, much more accurate, and much simpler, just easier to understand and easier to debug when things went wrong. My point here is that the issue that I'm talking about with this particular startup that I talked to, the issue wasn't strictly with the code. They could have vibe coded 10x more code for this particular system. The problem wasn't the code, it was that they were building the wrong thing to start off with. And this is why you need to develop your judgment. So you build the right thing, but maybe more importantly, so you avoid building the wrong thing. So you need to develop your judgment, but what exactly does this look like? Number one, you need to understand basic business mechanics and how to diagnose problems. Now, if you are in a very particular part of a business, that probably means understanding your specific parts of the business. In the past, I've worked in marketing departments as well as customer satisfaction, customer experience. And in those cases, I needed to understand marketing and customer sat. If you're in product, you need to understand product. If you're in ops, you need to understand ops. But the higher you go, the more those things start intersecting with each other. So the higher up you go, let's say you're a leader or a director or a VP, you're going to need to understand basic business mechanics as well as things like financials and so on. Next, you'll need to understand how to diagnose problems with your business or with your specific part of a business. Third, you need to understand how to map workflows. If you are trying to apply artificial intelligence to solving a business problem, you almost always need to map the workflow, including the inputs, the various types of inputs, the exact output that you need to produce, and then all of the intermediate steps. And the reason for that, as I've already sort of described, is because in many cases, different parts of a workflow require different types of tools or techniques. That brings us to the next thing you need to know. You need to know the various types of AI and technology that you can use. I've talked about this in previous videos, but at a very high level, we have supervised learning techniques, which are often predictive modeling techniques. This comes from classic machine learning. I very frequently see companies that they're trying to use a large language model or an AI agent, and they actually just need a simple predictive model inside part of their workflow to automate part of their work. So you have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, which finds patterns in data. You have large language models and generative AI that generate things like text. You also have types of models that generate video or images and so on. And then we have AI agents, which are sort of a different thing. We often use AI agents when we need a system that can make a variety of different types of decisions and take a variety of different types of actions, but make decisions about exactly what to do at runtime. And then we have other things like deterministic code and scripts and maybe more traditional data science or analysis techniques. All of those things are tools in the toolbox, and you're going to need to know a little bit about those different types of tools, what they do, and what the best use cases are. So after you diagnose your problem, you map your workflow, then you're trying to just slot in various tools and techniques at exactly the right place. If you know all of these things, and if collectively you just have very good judgment with respect to applying AI, you will be able to help your team and your company not only build valuable AI systems, but also avoid expensive mistakes. And that will make you extremely valuable as an employee and AI leader. Now, developing this sort of AI judgment is great, and it will help you become a trusted AI leader and advisor inside of your organization. But if you want to get to the next level, you'll need to be able to proactively find great AI use cases. And that's why you should watch this next video. In this next video, I explain exactly how to find the right use cases, a simple framework for evaluating and selecting the right AI use cases, and more. You can check it out here. How to find great AI use cases.